This myth is pretty complex. It's got a lot of layers, and it's also centred around the quantity of years that the person has been training dogs, rather than the quality of the training that they're doing. And when I'm talking about quality, I'm talking about the science of behaviour as it relates specifically to dogs. And that includes things like how dogs learn, understanding how dogs' emotional states are inherently intertwined with their behaviour, how dogs communicate, and that's through a range of complex body language clues, some obvious, some very subtle. And our dogs are always talking to us every second of the day that we're with them. And it's the trainer's, it's a trainer's responsibility to understand those fundamental concepts about the science of behaviour as it relates specifically to dogs, in order to understand how to modify that dog's behaviour in the most humane way according to the scientific evidence and current best practice. Now, somebody who's been training dogs for 30 years and pulls out the choke chain or the prong collar, then it's pretty obvious that that person hasn't picked up a textbook, hasn't gone to a seminar, hasn't updated their skills, and has no idea about those fundamental concepts related to the science of behaviour with respect to dogs, dog behaviour and dog training. So why would you pay an unqualified person money, and why would you actually let a person come into your dog's life and jerk your dog's collar, put a shock collar on your dog, punish your dog, put their hands on your dog and physically force them into a situation to suppress the behaviour that you find undesirable, without actually taking a step back and understanding exactly why the dog's performing the behaviour in the first place. So this is a dangerous situation. We have people who have no qualifications, have no idea that the information that they're telling people, which is often based on personal opinion, and sometimes it's just plucked out of thin air, who knows, but it's not based on any science or evidence, as I mentioned earlier, as it relates specifically to dogs. So when we have people using punishment-based techniques, then often these are actually hidden by using words like corrections or check chains. This is pretty dangerous, because in these situations where you're forcing dogs, you're punishing dogs, you're actually worrying the dog. You're actually causing that dog to be fearful, and you're actually causing that dog to be anxious. So I'd like to just, as an aside, just have a special message for any trainer, any person who calls themselves a trainer and is using aversive methods like prong collars, shock collars, choke chains, punishment-based techniques. I'd like you just to consider the relevant legislation in your state. And in Queensland, we have the Animal Care and Protection Act 2001. And it states that a person is taken to be cruel to an animal if they abuse, terrify, torment, or worry that animal. Now, if you're using punishment-based techniques, you are actually doing just that. It's everybody's responsibility to make sure that they protect their dog from psychological as well as physical harm. So there's no excuse to be systematically abusing dogs and putting it under the guise of training. Thankfully, there are also a growing number of crossover trainers, and they're those trainers who have actually used punishment-based techniques or methods in the past and have actually updated their skills and crossed over into positive reinforcement training, force-free methods. There's a lot of misinformation, a lot of myths out there, but there's also a lot of positive reinforcement trainers out there, and it's easy to find good, sound information. And there's some links in the description below, and you can have a look at those links if you want to find a positive reinforcement trainer for your dog.